Right now, millions of us are going to log into Genshin Impact's massive Luna 7 update, but by the end of this video, you are going to see the exact, terrifying casino mathematics HoYoverse uses to ensure you never log out. We aren't doing a generic review of Nicole or exploring the new map expansions. Instead, we are going to deconstruct the exact operand conditioning at play. We're going to map out the hidden 0.6% probability traps. And most importantly, we are going to look at the literal animation physics designed to trap your brain in a state of dissociative absorption. But before we look at the actual code of the gacha banner, we have to appreciate the dark irony of this update storyline. The narrative core of Luna 7 focuses on Sumeru falling into an inexplicable slumber alongside Nahida. But the developers aren't just writing a story about a dangerous, inescapable sleep. They are engineering one. Clinical psychologists call this the compensatory dissociative online gaming model, or CDOG. It's a psychological spectrum that maps how we transition from healthy relaxation to severe dissociation, a state where your temporal perception and physical awareness basically shuts down. To understand the trap of Luna 7, we have to look at the architectural foundation of the game's monetization, the wish system. Gacha mechanics are fundamentally predicated on operand conditioning. Specifically, it uses variable ratio reinforcement schedules, a concept pioneered by behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner. Unlike a fixed schedule, where you know exactly when you'll get a reward, a variable ratio dispenses rewards randomly. This unpredictability yields the highest possible psychological resistance to quitting. It's the same exact mechanism driving traditional slot machines and infinite scrolling video platforms. But here is where HoYoverse's math gets terrifying. The base probability of obtaining a premium 5-star character, such as Nicole, is a microscopic 0.6% per pull. Now, if the system relied purely on that static probability, user frustration would quickly eclipse the dopamine reward. You would experience mass behavioral extinction. You'd get bored, close your wallet, and delete the app. So, how do they trap you? They employ a sophisticated PT algorithm to manipulate your perception of luck. Observational telemetry of over 35 million pulls proves that after 74 unsuccessful attempts, soft PT initiates. At this exact inflection point, your probability of winning spikes linearly by roughly 5.5% per pull. If you hit 89 failures, the 90th attempt represents hard PT, mathematically guaranteeing a 5-star outcome. The player base frequently mischaracterizes this as a consumer-friendly safety net. In reality, it is a highly optimized retention engine designed to commercialize your financial endurance. Because when you reach 65 fails, you don't view it as a string of costly mistakes. You view yourself as being close to PT. This psychological framing activates the sunk cost fallacy and endowment effect. You start feeling ownership over a virtual asset you don't even have yet, compelling you to spend real-world currency just to cross the finish line. To see how just predatory this specific algorithm is, we have to compare it to the rest of the industry. Mathematicians measure this using game refinement theory, which tracks the additive value of a system based on its informational acceleration. Basically, it measures how fast your brain gets hooked. HoYoverse operates in a terrifying mathematical Goldilocks zone. It avoids the exorbitant $4 per pull cost of some games while skipping the grueling 300 pull PT requirements of others. At roughly $1.98 per attempt and a 90 pull threshold, they have engineered a microtransaction ceiling that is highly digestible for moderate spenders, yet infinitely repeatable for high-spending whales. But hitting that PT threshold isn't actually a guaranteed win. Historically, hitting a 5-star triggered a brutal 50-50 probability split. You had a 50% chance to win the promotional character and a 50% chance to lose it all to a standard less desirable unit. Historical telemetry shows that successive 50-50 losses are the primary driver of player churn. It causes psychological devastation and mass behavioral extinction. Players quit. So, to ensure you never log out of Luna 7, HoYoverse implemented a covert algorithmic intervention, capturing regions. While the base chance of this mechanic activating is stated to be a microscopic 0.018%, observational modeling reveals a hidden truth. The system actively detects your historical failure patterns. If you keep losing the 50-50, the algorithm covertly adjusts your odds upwards, escalating to an estimated 25%, then 50%, until it forcefully gives you a 100% hard guarantee. This shifts the overall win rate to 55% in favor of the player. But this isn't generosity. It is a secondary, macro-level, variable ratio schedule. They are training your brain to believe that even when the odds are entirely stacked against you, a sudden burst of algorithmic grace will save you. So, the algorithm has successfully manipulated your risk assessment, and you finally won the character. The casino math did its job. But HoYoverse knows that obtaining the character is only half the battle. Now, they have to make sure you never want to leave them. Enter Phase 2, Parasocial Dependency. To anchor you to the Luna 7 ecosystem, the developers deploy highly calculated animation physics designed to bypass your logical brain and directly trigger your human empathy. Recent hierarchical clustering and eye tracking studies on Genshin Impact players reveal something fascinating. When we look at these characters, our visual attention doesn't lock onto their weapons or their outfits. Over 80% of our visual fixation is anchored entirely on their micro-expressions. HoYoverse animators don't just make the characters breathe. They engineer their idle animations to frequently break the fourth wall and make direct sustained eye contact with the player. In psychophysics, this simulated eye contact tricks your brain's frontal lobe into releasing oxytocin, the exact same chemical responsible for social bonding and affection in the real world. You aren't just looking at pixels. Your brain biologically registers them as a companion, which brings us back to the dark irony of Luna 7's inexplicable slumber. When you finally decide to log off and go to sleep in the real world, the game actively weaponizes this oxytocin bond against you. Have you ever noticed what characters do when you leave the controller idle? They sigh. They look around anxiously. They fall asleep waiting for you. This isn't just cute flavor text. It is a psychological guilt mechanism. They are engineering a digital environment where leaving the game feels like abandoning a friend. You are trapped in a positive-sum digital ecosystem, perfectly designed to make sure that the real world feels worse than the slumber. So, you are emotionally anchored. You feel guilty leaving. But what happens when you run out of premium currency and you almost get the character you want but fail? In behavioral psychology, this is known as the near-miss effect. When you pull a high-tier 4-star character instead of a 5-star Nicole, your brain's dopamine reward circuitry doesn't register it as a loss. Neurologically, your brain processes a near miss almost exactly the same way it processes a massive win. It triggers a profound surge of adrenaline, creating an overwhelming biological urge to try just one more time. But HoYoverse doesn't just rely on the math. They rely on the user interface to trick you. Look at the wish screen. You are allowed to click skip during the animation. You have to manually press the button to reveal the character. Psychophysicists call this the illusion of control. Giving the player physical agency over the reveal animation tricks your subconscious into believing that your actions are influencing the outcome. But the truth, the server determined what you want the millisecond you spent your currency. The animation is just a puppet show. Now, if a physical casino uses algorithmic soft pity, targeted micro-expressions to simulate oxytocin bonding, and variable ratio near misses on a demographic of 16 to 25-year-olds, they will be shut down by a federal government immediately. But because Genshin Impact is classified as a free-to-play video game, it operates in a terrifying legal gray area. Regulatory bodies like the FTC and acts like COPPA are completely unequipped to handle digital environments that engineer parasocial dependency. The inexplicable slumber of Luna 7 isn't illegal. It's just highly optimized business. But to truly understand the genius of the Luna 7 update, we have to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. Why does this work so flawlessly on us? Why is the 25 to 34 demographic, adults with jobs, bills, and responsibilities, so willing to step into this digital slumber? The answer lies in the escapism economy. HoYoverse isn't just selling anime characters. They are selling highly engineered relief from cognitive fatigue. When the real world feels overwhelmingly expensive and exhausting, a meticulously designed, beautiful world where your inputs always yield guaranteed eventual rewards is intoxicating. But to ensure that your pursuit of relief overrides your financial logic, the developers employ dark patterns in their user interface. The most aggressive of this is currency abstraction. Notice how you can't just buy Nicole for $20. In behavioral economics, spending real money triggers a psychological friction known as the pain of paying. To bypass this, HoYoverse forces you to convert your dollars into Genesis crystals, then into Prima gems, and finally into fates. By separating your real-world money by 3 layers of fictional colorful currency, your brain literally loses the ability to intuitively calculate costs. And the trap isn't just about monopolizing your wallet. It's about monopolizing your time. You see, the gacha banner is the only monetization engine. The retention engine is the daily commission and resin system. By offering you breadcrumbs of this premium currency every 24 hours, they instill a profound fear of missing out. If you don't log in today, that currency is gone forever. You aren't playing because you want to. You're logging in because the algorithm has conditioned you to fear the loss of progress. The slumber becomes a daily obligation. If the monetization is this aggressive and the psychological traps are this transparent, why do we tolerate it? Why does Luna 7 have tens of millions of pre-registrations while traditional $70 AAA game studios are facing an industry-wide extinction event of mass layoffs and closures? The answer lies in how HoYoverse completely inverted the traditional business model. In the old paradigm, you pay $70 upfront, and the transaction is over. But HoYoverse pioneered what behavioral economists call a positive sum digital ecosystem. Because the barrier to entry is literally $0, the game floods with millions of free-to-play users. But make no mistake, if you are playing for free, you are not the consumer. You are the product. The entire server infrastructure and development cost of massive updates like Luna 7 is entirely subsidized by the top 1% of high-spending players, known as whales. But those whales won't spend thousands of dollars in a dead game. The pre-players provide the massive social media gravity. They create the memes, the fan art, and the trending hashtags. They provide the social proof that makes the high spenders feel like their financial investment is socially validated. Having a fully upgraded Nicole isn't just a gameplay advantage. Because of the millions of pre-players who want her but can't afford her, she becomes a digital status symbol. This is where the trap transcends the code itself. HoYoverse hasn't just commodified animation physics or casino math. They have commodified community. The ultimate reason we don't log out of the inexplicable slumber isn't just the sunk cost fallacy of our wallets. It's sunk identity. If you uninstall the game, you aren't just losing your characters. You are exiling yourself from the cultural zeitgeist. You lose the inside jokes, you lose the daily shared experience, and you lose the only community where your digital status actually mattered. This is why the act of pulling for a character isn't just a transaction. If you look at the community surrounding Genshin, millions of players explicitly refer to the act of spending primogems as a wishing ritual. And whether HoYoverse intended it or not, this is exactly what the gacha system has become. Think about it. Players don't just click the button. They go to specific in-game locations. They use specific lucky characters. They perform elaborate digital rituals before spending their primogems. This behavior proves that the player base is subconsciously trying to regain the illusion of control we talked about earlier. Academics who study game refinement theory have a specific term for the psychological weight of this ritual. They call it gravity in mind. It measures the intense mental pressure generated by the prolonged scarcity of a win. Researchers have actually calculated the exact mathematical limit of human endurance per gacha games. They propose that to prevent extreme psychological damage, PT system should be legally capped by a specific formula based on base probabilities. Genshin's 90 full hard PT sits dangerously close to this maximum threshold of what the human brain can tolerate before experiencing total psychological rejection. This brings us to the ultimate defense of the game. You'll hear players say something like, "But the game is incredibly easy. You can beat the entire abyss and all the sorry bosses without spending a single dollar. It's totally free to play friendly." That is exactly the point. The combat is easy by design. HoYoverse doesn't want to frustrate you with mechanical difficulty because they aren't selling you the ability to beat the game. They are selling you the emotional compensation hypothesis. Beating a boss doesn't cure cognitive fatigue, but acquiring a hyper-stylized, psychologically optimized companion who looks directly into your eyes, that does. The game is free. The emotional relief is what costs you. But HoYoverse knows that if this emotional product was available all year round, your brain would eventually normalize it. The urgency will fade. So, they introduce the next psychological lever: artificial scarcity. Characters like Nicole aren't added to the standard pool. They are placed on limited time banners that vanish exactly after 21 days. If you fail to beat the casino mat within that specific 3-week window, the character is locked in the digital vault, completely inaccessible for up to a year. This artificial deprivation creates a fascinating socio-economic byproduct: leak culture. Because the official supply of information is starved, the player base actively seeks out data mine animations and beta test rumors. The community's intense focus on character reruns, such as the highly anticipated returns of Columbina, Neuvillette, or Mabuika, and the religious hoarding of primogems for these specific personas, is not a bug. It is a feature. It sustains the dopaminergic anticipation we discussed earlier, ensuring that the gravity in mind remains active even when you aren't physically holding your phone. And this brings us to the most dangerous aspect of the CDOG spectrum. As users continue to sink deeper into the game, empirical research shows that the real-world social quality of life often drops, correlating negatively with problem gambling risk. When your physical reality becomes isolating, your social circle shifts entirely into the game's community. And within that echo chamber, dropping $300 on an anime character isn't viewed as a financial crisis. It is heavily normalized. It's celebrated. The community infrastructure itself becomes the final padlock on the door to the inexplicable slumber. And this brings us full circle to the genius of the Luna 7 update itself. When you look at the architecture of the gacha system, the parasocial microexpressions, and the echo chamber of the community, the storyline of Sumeru falling into an inexplicable slumber stops looking like a fantasy. It starts to look like a dark meta-commentary on the player base. In the lore, Collei eventually realizes her reality is a fabricated dream, and she desperately fights to wake up. But outside the screen, millions of players don't even realize they are asleep. The ultimate psychological trick of HoYoverse is selling you the illusion of the hero. As the traveler, You are the ultimate agent of change in Tevat. You slay gods, you save nations, and you dictate the future. But the moment you open the wish menu, that agency is entirely stripped away. You are subjected to the 0.6% drop rates. You are subjected to the 50-50 coin flip. You are subjected to the arbitrary 21-day vaulting of characters. You aren't the hero saving the world. You are a user being conditioned for algorithmic compliance. The game gives you the ultimate power in the lore, precisely to mask how little power you have over the casino mat. Traditional casinos just want your money. If you go bankrupt, they kick you out. But in the positive sum digital ecosystem of Luna 7, HoYoverse wants something far more valuable than your wallet. Money is finite. They want your cognitive bandwidth. They want your daily routine, and they want to be the primary source of your dopamine, your parasocial empathy, and your social status. Whether you are a whale spending thousands of dollars or a free-to-play user generating social proof on Twitter, the house always wins because they have captured your mind. If HoYoverse had only built a digital casino, we would eventually get bored and walk away. If they had only built a visual novel with cute anime characters, we would play it once and uninstall it. The true danger of Luna 7 is in either of these elements in isolation. The danger lies in the seamless synthesis of the two. They have taken the cold, brutal, stochastic mathematics of a physical slot machine and drape it in the warm, inviting skin of a human companion. We live in an era that is categorized by historic levels of loneliness and cognitive fatigue. And HoYoverse has figured out how to actively monetize the fundamental human necessity for connection. They lock that connection behind a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. They use algorithms to track your failure rates. They use micro-expressions to trigger your oxytocin. They don't just want you to play the game. They want to become your primary emotional regulatory system. And the most terrifying part is that it is working flawlessly. Genshin Impact is in an anomaly. It is the new blueprint. As the $70 AAA gaming industry collapses under its own weight, every major tech and entertainment company on Earth is looking at HoYoverse's positive sum ecosystem. As you log in today to save Sumeru from its inescapable sleep, remember the real tragedy. Outside the screen, in the physical world, the slumber is just beginning. The goal of mapping out this psychology isn't to tell you to delete your account or to make you feel guilty for loving the game. Genshin Impact is a beautiful, meticulously crafted piece of art. But art can become a trap if you don't understand the frame it sits in. True agency comes from cognitive reframing. When you know that the 0.6% drop rate is designed to test your financial endurance, and when you know that the 50-50 system is meant to trigger a near-miss dopamine spike, and when you realize that Nicole's micro-expressions are quite literally engineered to trigger oxytocin in your brain, the spell breaks. You stop being the product and you start being the player again. You can still enjoy the world, the story, and the ritual of the gacha, but you do it knowing exactly what the house rules are. And when you know the rules, you dictate the terms of your own digital slumber. The ultimate defense against the CDOG model and game refinement theory isn't willpower, it's boundaries. Set a strict, unchangeable fight budget before the banner even goes live. Acknowledge that the gravity in mind will try to make you swipe your card when you hit 65 PT, and preemptively decide to walk away. We have looked at the variable ratio reinforcement schedules. We have deconstructed the currency abstraction, the sunk identity, and the artificial grace of the algorithm. We have mapped the architecture of the trap. Today, as millions of us log in to save Sumeru from its inescapable sleep, remember the real tragedy. Outside the screen, in the physical world, the slumber is just beginning for a generation that doesn't know these mechanics exist. The only way to truly beat a positive sum digital casino is to remember that you have a life outside of it. Now you understand the exact mathematics of how HoYoverse engineers digital slumber. But gaming is only a tiny fraction of your daily screen time. The algorithm shaping your TikTok and YouTube short speed is doing something much worse. It is actively rewiring your frontal lobe. I'm currently editing a deep dive into how the mandatory 3-second rule is making our generation biologically illiterate. And it drops in about 2 weeks. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And while you wait, let me know down in the comments. What is the absolute worst 50-50 loss you've ever experienced?